Hello, glad to have you join us on the news. I'm Ruth Aguwele. My sign language interpreter is Hannah Olainka. Let's begin with the headlines. Federal government's efforts in health gain more support as President Tinubu confers national award on Bill Gates. Nigeria resolves to work closely with diplomatic community to stimulate inclusive economic integration of West Africa. And South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, promises to unite the people. Okay, the Ondo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has upheld the victory of the All Progressives Congress and its candidate Lucky Ayedatiwa in the November 16, 2024 off-cycle governorship poll. Paul Omukago reports that the tribunal dismissed the petitions of the 5 petitioners for lacking in merit and lack of evidence in support of their petitions. In other news, the federal government's efforts in the health sector is gaining more support as the Gates Foundation says Nigeria will remain prominent in its humanitarian programs, particularly as it targets to end malaria in the country within the next 20 years. Co-founder of Microsoft and co-chair of the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, made this new commitment after President Bola Tinubu conferred a national honor of Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic on him in Lagos. State House correspondent Musbahu Danwahab reports.
The coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, was instrumental to opening the gates in 2009, and since then, this philanthropist has been footing some bills in Nigeria. Under an administration striving to drastically turn around the health and social welfare sector, the relationship of about 16 years was going to get bigger. In those past years, the Gates Foundation has reportedly contributed about $2 billion in Nigeria's health, digital innovation, agriculture, and financial inclusion. In the country's journey towards eradicating wild poliovirus, the Gates Foundation was equally a huge partner. And this is President Tinubu's way of saying thank you to the man that has opened his philanthropic gates to pay humanitarian bills in the country for close to 2 decades. Bill Gates is now a commander of the Order of the Federal Republic in Nigeria.
All I need to say is thank you, Bill Gates, for your indivisible commitment to humanity. It is highly remarkable. It's an inspiration to leadership across the world, including the one standing before you. I thank you very much.
And even as he acknowledged dwindling resources in support of AIDS across the world, Gates is hoping to invest $200 billion more globally in various sectors in the next 20 years. In addition to health, he says digital innovation and capacity development of youth in Nigeria are part of his plan.
I'm totally dedicated over the next 20 years to finishing the job, whether it's building up the data systems, getting the vaccines out to all the children, getting solutions for malnutrition that not only is responsible for a lot of deaths, but also cuts off the potential of the children who suffer from malnutrition. Some of our goals may seem very ambitious. For example, during the next 20 years, we do hope to completely eradicate malaria. And
20 years is very conservative, but we work very, very hard. I'm the malaria ambassador, and then both me and Bill were members of the Malaria Global Board. So we are working very, very hard, and I'm sure there will be, a headway where we'll achieve this less than 20 years.
The President's leadership, his political commitment to really provide those resources. If all the state governors provide more resources to treat malaria, to provide the drugs, to provide bed nets, to do the campaigns, I think Nigeria will see a lot of progress.
The government of President Tinubu says it will continue to leverage global and domestic partnerships in developing sectors of the economy. In Lagos, Musbau and Wahab, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu this Wednesday received the popular Lagos pastor and former presidential running mate, Pastor Tunde Bakare. Pastor Bakare, who was the running mate of former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2011, visited President Tinubu at his Lagos residence. State House correspondent Musbahu Dan Wahab had a conversation with the pastor, who has been expressing his reservations about President Tinubu's administration lately.
In the country as one of those who speak truth to power, and you have demonstrated that recently, expressing your views about the administration. What specifically are those things you have reservations about?
Well, it's not about just reservations. It's about how the country will go well. My personal vision is to see a nation that works in my lifetime. And those things I've discussed with Mr. President. They're not hidden things, but I've learned that when you discuss with the person in charge, you leave it with him to do whatsoever he wills with what you have suggested. So I've had a private conversation with Mr. President, and I'm glad that he received me well, and I trust that God will help our nation.
What areas specifically do you want him to improve on?
I've just told you what transpired in my discussion with him stays with me and with him. God guiding him and giving him wisdom will help this nation not to slide or go down the drain, but to bounce back so that it can leave a mark that cannot be erased.
Okay. So now, what do you like to see in the next 2 years of this administration?
Well, I like to see a peaceful nation. I like to see Nigerians being their brother's keeper. I like to see good collaboration between the best of the North and the best of the South to steer Nigeria in the right direction. I like to see predictable progress in our nation. We have danced around some subjects for too long a time. It's time to take concrete action to ensure that the mercies of our country do not live in abject poverty. That's all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, reaffirms Nigeria's resolve in working closely with the diplomatic community to stimulate the inclusive economic integration of West Africa. The Foreign Affairs Minister made this known during the stakeholders' engagement with West African ambassadors ahead of Nigeria's hosting of the West African Economic Summit in Abuja. Garba Natala reports.
The West Africa Economic Summit, initiated by President Bola Tinubu, aims to overcome challenges for a better future in the sub-region and strengthen regional unity. Yusuf Tugar stressed that the summit will allow West African countries to take charge of their economic destiny by addressing barriers to intra-regional trade, such as fragmented structure and inconsistent regulatory environments. The summit will also align development priorities, attract investments, and harness youth-driven innovation for inclusive economic integration across the region. Yusuf Tuga has also urged ambassadors to involve their heads of state, ministers, and national business communities in the summit, which is slated for June 20th to June 21st, 2025. He underscored the importance of leveraging the region's natural resources to transform West Africa into an active participant in global trade, noting that West Africa will no longer be a spectator, but rather stand at the threshold of a new Atlantic era of prosperity as a fully engaged and empowered actor in global trade and transformation. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Natala, NTA News.
In other news, China's Commerce Minister has called on the World Trade Organization to strengthen supervision over unilateral tariffs and put forward objective and neutral policy proposals. The Chinese Commerce Minister, Wang Wentao, said this at a WTO ministerial meeting. Let's hear more from Kolo Mohammed.
China's Commerce Minister Wang Wentao reiterated China's stance on upholding a multilateral trading system and said World Trade Organization has the country's backing for a more important role in global economic governance. Mr. Wang also met with European Trade Commissioner Šefčovič and had a pragmatic, frank discussion with his Canadian counterpart. Officials at the World Trade Organization spoke about the possibility of global trade conflict based on the current tariff regimes. In other news, Ecuador's Congress approved a constitutional reform to allow the establishment of foreign military bases in the country, which must now be endorsed in a referendum. Military installations around the country will be converted into parks for recreation, hospitals, and other complexes. Re-elected President Daniel Noboa had already proposed to lift the existing prohibition on the matter, with the declared objective of strengthening his war against drug trafficking. Kolo Muhammad, NTA News.
The Leaving No One Behind session of the ongoing 2025 Global Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction in Geneva, Switzerland, advocates policy reviews that allows for inclusion at all levels. Participants also made a case for open data, open research and community engagement, which is key to the successful implementation of the Sendai framework. Mina Daniels report.
Ala El Nadi coordinates the activities of people living with disability in Egypt. Tells me behind cameras that indeed life for people living with disability during disaster times could be horrible.
If we take care of them, and of course people all the time say, okay, we need to take care of inclusion of people with disability during their daily life. If you take care of people with disability during day-to-day life, you have to take care of them during disasters.
The Sendai framework is strategic in the accomplishment of disaster risk reduction. Speakers in the multi-level sessions of the ongoing global platform on disaster risk reduction agree that though disasters apply multi-measures in diverse regions, applying international strategies in reviewing the Sendai framework is apt in mitigating consequences of disaster.
Women play an important role in ECODIA because they are working directly on the field to handle their livelihood, which is very vulnerable to the extreme climate.
Bearing in mind that no one is isolated from disasters, conversations are thrown towards infusing wisdom in leadership mechanisms for disaster risk reduction by redesigning plans and efforts to suit regional disaster situations. Stakeholders believe that the remaining 5 years of the Sendai framework can still be channeled towards ensuring a comprehensive policy plan to reduce the risk faced by women and girls as well in the fight against disasters. In Geneva, Switzerland, Minna Daniels, NTA News.
The Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, will lead Nigeria's delegation to the 4th United Nations Ocean Conference, scheduled to take place from June 9 to 13, 2025 in France. The minister will represent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at a high-level global event, which will bring together world leaders, policymakers, scientists, and stakeholders to accelerate action towards ocean conservation and the sustainable use of marine resources. Oyetola will also participate in the commemorative events of the 2025 World Oceans Day on June 8, underscoring Nigeria's commitment to global efforts aimed at addressing the urgent challenges facing the world's oceans and coastal ecosystems. The Nigerian delegation will engage in high-level dialogues, expert panels and bilateral meetings aimed at strengthening international cooperation and attracting investments in sustainable marine infrastructure, ocean science and coastal resilience. The minister is also expected to showcase Nigeria's recent reforms in marine protection, port modernization and artisanal fish development, or rather fisheries development, under the Renewed Hope Agenda's strong emphasis on environmental sustainability and economic diversification. The conference is being convened under the theme, Accelerating Action and Mobilizing All Actors to Conserve and Sustainably Use the Ocean. Let's take a breather. We'll be back.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
Thank you for staying tuned. The federal government has pledged robust communication and advocacy support for the upcoming nationwide measles rubella vaccination campaign scheduled for October 2025. Well, this is coming from the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, when he received the Center for Well-Being and Integrated Nutrition Solutions in Abuja. Salihu Abdullahi Kwanara reports.
Measles rubella is a contagious viral infection known by its distinctive red rash, low fever, and other symptoms. It is contagious from person to person and can be prevented by vaccine. This is to raise public awareness ahead of a health campaign on the life-saving importance of the measles rubella vaccine in Nigeria.
A vaccine that is alive, live vaccine means that when it gets to our body, it stimulates immunity and you have a response. So when the disease affects you, you've already have something to protect you. It's a combination of two serious diseases. What could be more? You combine measles with rubella.
The host reaffirmed his task to, among others, lead the way by providing the necessary tools for publicity to update Nigerians on reforms in the health sector while supporting efforts aimed to guarantee the safety of lives and property.
One reason why you have children who are either born deaf or blind or have holes in the heart is because of this measles rubella. This is great education for us, and it is our responsibility as Ministry of Information and National Orientation, together with all the agencies, especially the National Orientation Agency, to work with you to get this message out to Nigerians. We have no choice but to do that because this is largely the primary responsibility of this ministry.
That is not all. He emphasized the ministry's readiness to co-develop strategic messaging and support public education efforts nationwide. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi Kwanara, NTA News.
And from health, of course, to well-being, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has continued its raid of shops and markets across the country to block unwholesome products from getting to innocent Nigerians. This time, the agency sealed some local rice mills in Abuja for alleged illegal operations. Hamman Jabani reports.
In December last year, the enforcement team of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, sealed a warehouse and 5 other shops involved in repackaging local rice as imported brands. The operation followed a tip-off from concerned citizens and subsequent surveillance carried out by officials of the agency. Following further investigations, the NAFDAC team visited several local rice milling facilities in Masaka, Nasarawa State. At the scene, it was observed that the millers were repackaging locally produced rice into popular brands' bags. The facilities were unregistered and operating under unhygiene conditions.
When some people come, they will say this is what they want. We are not producing at home.
Like they haven't bring new brown bags here for we to pack. Even December, I can remember last year December, the customer that they brought new brown bag for us to package it, but the owner of this place wanted us not to accept them.
The leader of the NAFDAC team emphasized that the agency's mission is to ensure that all food products in Nigeria are safe for consumption, while urging Nigerians to patronize only reputable and certified outlets when buying food items.
Prescription of the product is that they should be kept in a dry and cool environment. By the time the products are kept in the sun, all the minerals and vitamins in the products are gone. When you buy the products, they will not add any value to your health or your vitality.
Kenneth Azikwe is the director of FCT office of the agency.
Packaged rice is a regulated product and should be registered by NAFDAC. So if you are milling, for a rice miller, you are milling rice for people, you put it in an unbranded package and give them. But by the time you mill rice for somebody, you put it in somebody else's branded packaging, that is criminal.
The team also halted the sale of various beverages at a depot in Masaka due to poor storage facilities that could compromise public health. All the identified factories were sealed and the owners have been invited to the NAFDAC office for further investigation. It will be remembered that the agency has conducted such operations in Aba, Kano and Lagos. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
The journey towards national security and lasting peace is neither straight nor easy, as it is marked by steep climbs, uneven terrains and unforeseen obstacles. But through perseverance, discipline, dedication, resilience, ultimately victory is certain. Those were the lines of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, to personnel at the second quarter route march in Abuja. Defense correspondent Olajide Bello reports.
Putting the horse before the cart is what the Nigerian Air Force adopted for the second quarter route march through medical checkup for the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, and other personnel. It was more than a march. It was a show of force, clear evidence that the Nigerian Air Force remained a formidable guardian of the skies and the land. Dressed in combat fatigues, the personnel marched with purpose, their eyes sharp and posture unwavering. Each step they took symbolized resilience, unity and readiness to defend the country at all costs. At the reviewing stand stood the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, his eyes scanning the formation with pride. When the troops came to a halt, he stepped forward to address them.
Rest assured that your protection is not just an obligation, it is our highest priority. To the enemies of our nation, insurgents, terrorists, bandits, and all who seek to disrupt our peace, know this: there will be no hiding place for those who threaten the peace and stability of Nigeria. We'll find you and we'll take you out.
The route march had ended, but the mission was far from over. The skies remained theirs, and so did the duty to protect every inch of the nation beneath them. Olajide Bello, NTA News.
Following a protracted legal tussle over who is the substantive emir of Gwandu Emirate in Kebbi State, well, the Supreme Court has set aside verdicts delivered by the Kebbi State High Court and the Court of Appeal, as those courts lacked the jurisdiction to grant the victory they granted to the post-emir Mustafa Jokolo in 2005. Upon his replacement as Emir of Gondu Emirate by Muhammadu Bashir, Jokolo had sought redress. But the Apex Court, in its judgment, held that Jokolo failed to obtain a pre-trial permission from the Kebbi state government before instituting the case, and this thereby robbed the lower courts of jurisdiction to hear the matter. The Apex Court upheld the appeal of the Kebbi state government and that of Muhammadu Bashir, as the respondent failed to meet the condition precedent in the matter. The Federal Road Safety Corps has rolled out its Salah Special Patrol operations, deploying 36,000 personnel, 750 patrol vehicles, and other critical equipment from June 5th to 11th, 2025. Oyeyemi Ajayi reports that the initiative is designed to ensure free flow of traffic, prompt rescue services, and swift clearance of obstructions along major roads and critical corridors nationwide before, during, and after the festive season.
As Salala approaches, Nigeria's roads are buzzing with activities. Across the country, people are moving from cities to hometowns, from work to worship, all in the spirit of celebration. And with the increased movement comes increased responsibilities, especially at the parks and motor terminals, the country's busy transit points. At the Sani Abacha Park in Maraba, the mood is a mix of anticipation and preparation. Passengers wait patiently for their turn, while transporters gear up, heeding warnings and ready to cooperate.
All our members have been warned, more importantly, not to drink while driving or work under stress. There are task forces in various parks, particularly for effective monitoring of commuters and drivers in various parks across the nation. And any errant driver, even right from the park, will not be able to move out of the park.
This station day here. But for the Federal Safety Corps, this season's efforts goes beyond sirens sitting on chairs with microphones as well as slogans. It is about face-to-face safety education, a direct approach. Officers engage motorists and passengers, not just informing them, but empowering them to act responsibly on the roads. And leading this year's campaign himself is the Corps Marshal.
Another thing we're also advising them not to do is distracted driving. That is, using porn while driving, either testing while driving, eating while driving, drinking while driving. All those things, we don't condone it. We really want to enforce this time around.
With its full deployment of manpower and logistics, the Corps is putting special focus on dangerous driving and overtaking, overloading, use of phones while driving, excessive speed, lane indiscipline and route violation, amongst others. Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
Right to stay safe. And that concludes the news. Thank you for your time. I'm Ruth Aguwele. My sign language interpreter is Anna Olainka. Bye.